The volley is such a huge part of the game. We're always saying to players, get up to net, get into a good position to finish the points, but players are making a lot of mistakes on those volleys.
Yeah, and today we're going to run through 6 tips that you can apply to your game straight away and it will transform your volleys.
And tip number 6 is one that players don't often think about, and it's super important.
So stay till the end.
So number 1 error, without a doubt, across all recreational players, always seems to be the ready position.
Yeah, see a lot of players flat-footed, almost shocked when the ball comes to them, but it's so simple to get in that ready position from the start.
And we see lots of variations of this, don't we? We see like a ready position down here where they end up having to come up to the ball. We see a ready position where they're kind of standing down with the racket down by the side, particularly when the ball goes to their partner. They might start the point with a good ready position, the ball goes to the partner, they bring their racket down and they end up watching their partner, and then the ball comes to them and it's a massive
you
shot.
could just be standing around having a chat, you know, the racket's down.
Exactly. And so what should it look like?
It should be racket in a position that you're ready to hit the volley. So you're here, your feet are hip width apart, you're on your toes, so you're ready for that ball, and the racket is up here, so when the volley comes, you're ready. And
from here, you're closer to both sides. It doesn't have to travel a long way to get to the shot. So tip number 2 is understand that when you get to the net position, your volley is not always all out attack. You can't attack every single ball that you have from your volley.
Yeah, it's almost a mental shift for the player. It's understanding that yes, you want to get to net, that's where we want to be in attack, but it doesn't mean that once you get there, you have to finish the point.
Yeah, and you still often need to get to net, like after the serve, for example, and then build up to the opportunity to finish. It's quite different from tennis, where you just need to hit the ball past your opponent to win the point, and quite often you do that almost immediately from the volley in tennis. But in Padel, there needs to be usually 1 or 2 shots to set that up, and the higher the level you get to, the more shots are often required.
And it's a lot about that ball you receive. Like you say, it's about the level. So you have to decide as the player which ball you want to attack on. Some balls, if they're below the height of the net, you might have to defend and hold your position, but if you can attack, then you attack. So it's really about choosing that ball to do it on.
Yeah, so this tip is about being sensible and understanding that it's not all out attack. Tip number 3 is about using that Continental Grip, because with the Continental Grip, you can be much more flexible into those positions and avoiding this frying pan grip with your shoulders open. Now, this is what players often are doing, is being in this position, and then whenever we try and change the grip, they go to Continental and they do the same like this, but it's really difficult in this position to do this because the angle of my wrist makes this shot very, very difficult. So in order to make it easier in the Continental Grip, you must turn your shoulders. And if you turn your shoulders, this then becomes a lot easier. So technically, you want to turn your shoulders and keep that Continental Grip, and therefore you can control the ball like this. So that is how you avoid your frying pan grip, and that is how you will change to Continental and keep control on the volley. Tip number 4 is that be aware, unlike tennis, you don't always step across and forward with the diagonal leg.
And there's 2 reasons for that. One is time and the second is recovery. So let's go into those.
Yeah, and they're both time really, aren't they? Because the first one is, if you step across, it takes you more time than to step with that open leg. A small step here is much, much faster, and often that ball is coming quickly to you. And the recovery is again time, because it takes you more time to push off that leg to recover. Whereas if you step open, it's much easier to push back into the correct position.
And we always compare paddle to tennis, and the reason that you would do that in tennis versus paddle is that there's a longer distance on the court, so you have time, but in paddle there isn't that time.
Yeah, and I think there's a few other technical things that we can add to this. Often we teach newer players to step forward like this because we want to get that transfer of body weight. It's easier to turn your shoulders. And if you are stepping like this, it is also important that you continue to turn your shoulders and also contact through the ball, because we see players doing this where they just jab at the ball and then it goes nowhere and they feel like the technique is not correct. So it's still important to go through that ball and try and get your body weight into the shot if you can. So tip number 5 and 6 are focusing on where we're hitting the ball and the type of ball at the other end. And 6, you won't expect number 6 because it's something that a lot of players don't talk about. But tip number 5 is about hitting too hard and also placing the ball like too deep or too in the corners, thinking you're going to hit a winner.
And many tennis players come to the paddle court hitting everything really, really fast, and they're playing their volleys as if they're trying to play past their opponent, but you've got to remember there's glass behind you.
Yeah, and it's linked in a little bit with, you know, thinking that everything is all out attack, isn't it? That, you know, actually when you come to net, controlling the placement of that ball because you don't want it to have a big rebound, and also controlling the speed to move your opponents out of position is really, really key.
A piece of advice that we give to our players on the padelschool.com is that they should play their next match by hitting more placement on their volleys and not going for all out attack.
Yeah, and it's a great way to also improve your strategy. If you can win those points by moving your opponents around and winning with controlled volleys, then you will get a great understanding of the game.
Tip number 6 is our bonus tip, and before you watch that, go to www.thepadelschool.com and check out our platform. We have courses on there. You can even get personal advice from us on your shots when you video them.
Well, we have a shot fixer on the volleys, so you can send in videos of your volleys and we will give you tips about how to improve and actually coach you online.
Let's get into tip 6, the bonus tip.
Tip number 6 is something that the World Padel Tour players really focus on that a lot of players don't realise, and that is controlling the height of your volleys and keeping the ball low at the other end so that the players actually always have to hit up.
Players always think when your opponents are at the net, I have to play low, but when you're at the net yourself, a lot of players don't think they have to keep it low at the other end, do they?
Yeah, we're always talking about chiquitas. You know, everyone loves to talk about chiquitas. Hit to the feet so that they have to hit up from the net, and they're absolutely right, but it's the same thing at the back of the court. If you can force your opponent to play a ball below the height of the net from the back of the court, you know they have to hit up, and therefore you're more likely to have an easier next ball.
We guarantee that at least one of these tips you can improve in your game, and it will completely transform your volleys.
And even us, I know that I could make my volleys a little bit lower or work on the placement. So, for sure there are areas that you will be able to improve if you have that dedicated focus. Now, if you want to check out our platform, we've got a week free trial, and I'll just put the link up here. It's thepadelschool.com, and then down here, we're going to show you a video about how you can attack your volley.